So welcome. This session is about positivity. So it's Positivity Works, and it's about having a positive attitude and how that helps frame your future for future success. My name's Susan Hunter. I'm the Director of Marketing, Communications, and External Relations with Northern College. And thank you to our guests and to my co-presenter, Lynn. We're just thrilled to present this and have this seminar take place so that you can see how being positive benefits your life and having an open mind towards career and career paths. And what we'd like to do is first give the presentation, and then we're going to hear from our guests who will talk a bit about their career. And yeah, we'll get started with our first slide, which is that positivity does work and that it can have a great impact on your future. And we know this because the things that you think about often happen. And if you're positive about it, it's much more likely that you'll be able to succeed and tackle those things that are challenges. So as this says, framing your beliefs in a positive way, keeping a positive attitude and using positive skills at work, which this is a work seminar, can help you navigate and continue on a fulfilling career path, especially during times of uncertainty. And as we saw with COVID, things are pretty uncertain, but if you keep that positive outlook and those beliefs, then often you'll find life more fulfilling and that success will visit you more easily.
So we're going to talk a little bit about those beliefs that we have, whether they are positive or negative, how those beliefs lead to certain outcomes.
When you talk about your beliefs supporting you and achieving your goals or blocking you, it's really interesting when you look at, you might not even know what those beliefs are. You might just always have thought that. Maybe your parents thought that, or a sibling thought that, or maybe a teacher or coach had said that once. And from that point on, you just believed it to be true. But unpacking that a bit and looking at that blind spot and saying, hey, oh my gosh, I've always believed this. And then when someone says, have you ever thought about it this way? Then you have a new way of thinking. So this is to meet you where you are and bring you to a new place when it comes to positivity.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to go over a few examples of what these beliefs and what an outcome of that belief could be. So, for example, Maya believes that management has already decided who's going to get that new job. And an outcome of that is that Maya decides not to apply for the new job, even though she's qualified for it. And she's disappointed to learn that someone less qualified got the job she really wanted.
Right. If you pause on this slide, Lynn, what I've heard from a lot of folks is, I'm not going to apply for that because they're asking for this level of education, or they are saying that they want such and such skills in the ad and I don't have everything. So in my history of working professionally, I hear this most often from women. Women, and research has shown this, are less likely to apply for a job when they haven't ticked off every single box. And then when someone gets it that's less qualified than them, they're like, oh my gosh, they didn't have all the qualifications. It's like no one usually has every qualification. So try anyway, put your name in the hat, show up and own it. Women often talk themselves out of jobs, and then other people get that job that are less qualified just because they went for it. Always apply, because then you have more options. If they call you for an interview, go for the interview. They'll, say, I want to be confidential. I don't want folks to know about it if you have a current job. And then if you get a job offer, you don't necessarily have to leave your job. Take it all the way through and have them make you an offer and see, and then learn negotiation skills, even if you don't take that job. So I always say yes. It's a great experience to not only get interviewed, but also get a job offer and have more options in your life. You usually get a job when you have another job. I know that sounds crazy, and my daughter always said to me when she was little, Mom, why don't they get jobs to people that need jobs and not people that already have jobs? Because you've proven that you're showing up every day and that you're always already employed. So say yes to that job, even if it's not your dream job, and then you can build upon that. So you're not going to have your dream job right away usually, and that's okay.
So we'll go on to a next example of a belief that would block your success. So Alex believes there are no jobs out there. An outcome of that belief would be Alex puts little or no effort into preparing their resume and doing targeted work search. They settle for a minimum wage job they dislike.
So we
that's
know
what-
here that, and I guess, and it's okay to get that minimum wage job, especially when you're working on your resume, and remembering that it's that they dislike it. So they don't like their job, but they settle for it because they're like, there's no jobs out there. Remember, and I've always said this when people are like, oh, it's so hard to find a job right now, Susan. I can't believe you're, looking for work at various times in my life. And I said, oh, I don't need lots of jobs. I just need one job. Those are totally easy to find if you think that. And then I get one. And I've done that my whole life. I always say, I don't need lots of jobs. I just need one. And a job arrives. It's just meant for me and I show up. So always what you think, that belief will bring you to your outcome.
Another example of a belief here that is blocking would be Sahil believes he's not very smart. And an outcome of that could be that Sahil tunes out in class, doesn't complete his assignments, and sets himself up to fail. Maybe that failure is in his own mind, but basically, yeah, again, that kind of belief thinking within yourself, something that's probably not accurate at all based on facts, can lead you up to future actions and decisions that aren't, what you would like for yourself because they block you in that way.
So true. So true. So we'll pause it here. Think back over your own life. There may be an instance, maybe once, maybe a few times, where someone told you that you couldn't do something, or that was a dumb answer, or whatever they said. Think of how powerful that word is. That someone telling you that maybe you didn't do as well on something, or you didn't show up for something because you had something going on in your life, but those assumptions that weren't positive. And sometimes we do this for entire populations, right? There's stereotypes about entire populations, and looking at honestly at how that happens, or who's smart and who's not, or who works hard and who doesn't. So we really have to unpack those beliefs and watch them, because they can take up some rent space in your head and you don't even realize it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've been telling myself that the whole time, and I don't dare tell anybody else, but I think this about myself. So be really careful with your beliefs. And if you find that someone, maybe a coach or a teacher or even a parent, said, you're not going to turn out to be anything in your life, and hopefully you didn't have that, you can then put up little Post-it notes around your house and tell yourself that you are deserving of good things, that you are smart and strong, that your life is turning around, that you have all the possibilities before you. Words are powerful, so use them to encourage yourself, and have those little tips that, whether they're in your little mirror on a Post-it, or a wall by your coffee maker, or just even on your computer when you open it, just like, you deserve good things, you're smart, you can do this, I'm here for you, is a really positive thing you can do to show up for you, no matter what you've been told in your past, because you do matter and you are smart.
Absolutely. And then we have one more belief, a blocking belief to go over, just as another example to get us started before we get into, what these beliefs mean for us and how to reframe them, is that Kim believes that nobody understands her or cares what happens to her. And the outcome that falls from that would be that Kim keeps her worries to herself, and then her friends and family are unaware of her needs, so they offer little support to her.
Mm-hmm. Again, that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Nobody's going to understand, or nobody cares about me. So then you don't speak up, and then you don't share. And then that support network doesn't know you need a lot of that support. So really, really important to show up for you and say what you need as well, and then give that to others as well.
And just wanted to pause here and think about, so what, a lot of us have these beliefs that are, negative or just not completely positive, and that, as we just realized, block us from achieving our goals or inhibit our progression or growth.
Why might we do that? The world can sometimes convince us, right, that we aren't enough, or we need something more. Even if you look at advertising assumes that you need underarm deodorant because you smell, or you need to drive this car if you are successful, or you need to buy or want this in order to be popular or good. And so it sets up a deficit. And then what we do is we might remember that someone was negative to us. Maybe it was a parent when we were little. Maybe it was a coach. Maybe it was even a best friend or a sibling. And when they told us that one incident that we didn't really necessarily shine, we can remember that among all the other positive things that were sent to us that one time when we were maybe embarrassed, or maybe we didn't do that well, or maybe we didn't get along with someone and they brought out the worst in us. And so for all those reasons, we can feel inadequate. We can remember that. And then we beat ourselves up. We sort of attract that woe is me. And sometimes the world receives us that way, right? If we say, oh, I can't do it. And then you want someone to encourage you. The other thing we do is we want to protect ourselves. So if we say, oh, I won't get it, then if we get it, we're not disappointed. But the only thing is we might behave that way. And then we attract not getting it because we don't think we're the best candidate. Or, who am I to want this? Well, you're deserving as everybody else to have a fair chance at something. And that those words that we say to ourselves are really powerful, and not to repeat those things that other people may have told us or told you that hurt you.
That kind of brings to like the next sort of way to think about your beliefs. Think of one that you have that's either blocking you from your future success or in the moment. And then thinking of a way to reframe that in a positive way. I can start us off with one example from my own experiences. I used to think that if I were to move back up to the north from after, moving away for post-secondary education and trying to succeed and live life in the city down south, I thought that if I were to return home, that would mean that I was a failure. Like, I truly believe that moving home back to where I'm from up north here, that meant I was a failure. And that blocked me from finding happiness and future success in my career and just life in general. I stayed in the city down south for much longer than I should have. And had I have reframed it years ago, I guess, as no, success doesn't mean where you live or the lifestyle you're living, where you are. Success is, how you frame it. And I have the skills and that are valued wherever I am, and I can find happiness and success wherever I am. Then I probably could have saved myself a lot of grief living somewhere where I didn't want to for so long, given that false belief that I would be a failure or people would perceive me as that. And turns out I'm just way, way happier back up north and close to family in here. So I think sharing about those, because it's so common, everyone has negative thinking, it's so ingrained, especially like the more negative you think, the more it's easier to just think negatively and just go kind of down and down. So it is a vulnerability to talk about beliefs that are blocking you, but it is also just like kind of that first step towards having positivity in your life long term. So I'm going to just move on to this little exercise. There's about 35 little questions. How do you rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 3, which can kind of show you where you're at in terms of a positive attitude. And the trick to it, I guess, is to go with your gut feeling right at the beginning, like what you'd say, yes, no, or sometimes, and just really evaluate where you are right now, and then to be able to see how you can improve based on some of the things that we're talking about today, reframing your beliefs that you have. And we're going to talk a little later about positive skills that you can use at work, especially.
You just give yourself a 3 for mostly yes. Most of the time you're that thing. 2 means sometimes you're like that. And 1 means mostly no. And I'll just point them out because you can see what they're looking for. And lawyers will also ask you interview questions around this, but are you normally on time? Do you consider yourself to be a courteous driver, right? This one person got cut off by this person who took her parking spot, and it happened to be that she was going to be interviewing the person. So you never know, especially in small towns and sparsely populated regions. You don't want to tick too many people off? Can you take being criticized without feeling hurt or resentful? Do you generally look at the bright side of things? Can you work with someone you dislike? Are you pleasant to others even when you aren't pleased about something? Are you enthusiastic about other people's interests? Are you neat in your personal appearance and work habits? Do you respect other people's opinions? Do you admit to your mistakes? Are you the kind of friend that you would like others to be? Are you a good listener? Can you stop yourself from sulking when you don't get your way? Can you adapt easily to new and unexpected situations? So you can see how this can all make you a great person at home, but also would help in your work and your career, right? People are like, oh, I'll definitely work with her. She's awesome. She always brings out the best in me and tries to help and is just a really kind, good person and keeps showing up. So think about that in your own life. And you can also have those moments of truth and honesty, right? For the scale, just so you know, if you reach 95 to 105, your positives are positively terrific. If you get 75 to 94, your positives are great. 45 to 74, your positives need some help. And less than 45, your positives have almost fizzled out. Take a close look at your attitude. And that might be for someone that might be going through burnout, which sometimes happens professionally. That's another session, but look at that self-care and make sure you know where you are with your attitude and how it's showing and impacting others and you.
And then a big thing to note here is while you're going through this, if you do land on the scoreboard somewhere that's lower than you would have expected or hoped for yourself, just know that positivity is definitely something that you learn over time and get better at. But some of the benefits of this, having a positive attitude in terms of career would be success at work, promotions and career advancement opportunities, possibly holding on to a job during tough times, during times of uncertainty, when you have challenges inside or outside of work, as well as higher job satisfaction. Susan, do you want to dive into this a little bit more?
Sure, thanks, Lynn. So as a director at a college, I often hire for attitude. It doesn't mean that competencies don't matter, because you do need, to have some education, which is why you've attended college, but not necessarily the degree in what you're being hired for. A lot of us are working in areas where we've never studied in, but it came along and we had the right attitude and people wanted us to join the team and work with others. So a lot of the things that we're going to look through to see if you're positively charged, create that cycle of success that we talked about today, because you're willing to try it. You're willing to put yourself out there. You're willing to work with others and help build them as well and keep the communication up. And when jobs like COVID come along, you can bounce back and be more resilient and find either another job or in the job that you have higher job satisfaction, because you say, you know what, I don't like every aspect of my job, but I like a large part of it, or I like the people that I work with, or I like my schedule. So keeping that silver lining so that other positive people are attracted to you and want to keep working with you and have you as part of their team. So those are all the great things that happen with a positive attitude. We all know someone who doesn't matter even if the sun's shining, well, I'll get a sunburn, or if it rains, well, it's raining again, rather than, oh, the flowers are getting a good drink and melting the snow and spring's coming. So you want to attract folks and keep people in your realm that build you up and see the positive. And sometimes you go through a rough spot, but you try to get that silver lining on, what did I learn from this? What did this teach me about myself and others that I can apply next time? And reframing it, not as failure, but as an opportunity and a challenge to learn.
Now we're going to talk to our...
Yeah, so as you've been hearing, positivity makes a difference in what we attract to us. And we are listening to the personal stories of folks that have gone through different things professionally. And we wondered if you might share some of your story with us, kind of what you studied, how, what jobs you took and how it all turned out for you. And yeah, we look forward to hearing your story if you'd like to share.
Absolutely. So I am the marketing and communications officer at the college. I suppose my journey here was a little roundabout. I did a 3-year advanced diploma in print and broadcast journalism. focusing mostly on print, which is newspapers and magazines. I took my first job. It was in a very small town in the Northwest Territories. So I left Toronto in June, where it was 32 degrees, and I landed in Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories, and it was -8 and snowing. That was probably one of the, I want to say, best and worst experiences of my life, because it put me in a place where I was completely out of my comfort zone. It put me in a place where I was severely isolated from my family. I was living in somebody's shed for a little while, and then I moved on up into somebody's porch. It was a very, it was an experience that helped shape who I am today in the best and worst case scenarios, and definitely shaped my perspectives on life and work. From there, I ended up leaving that job. I did couch surfing, as they call it, I suppose, homelessness, if you want to call it what it is, for about 6 months before I was finally hired as a reporter for the Timmins Daily Press. So that was a daily newspaper that I worked at for about 2 years, which was completely in my experience stream. That was what I went to school for. And then the opportunity came to join the CTV Northern Ontario team as a reporter in Timmins, a job that I did for 5 years, which was definitely not entirely what I went to school for, but was something that I took a lot of time to learn how to do properly. And after 5 years with CTV, I decided to hang up the microphone and join the world of communications at Northern College. It's been a very challenging and rewarding experience. It's broadened my horizons in terms of understanding what I'm capable of and building the confidence in myself to know that I can do anything that I put my mind to and take the time to teach myself.
So Kyle, did you always have that confidence of knowing you could put, anything you put your mind to, you could do? Or, I mean, how did you arrive at that place to say, I'm going to take this on and try something in post-secondary education, even though you had never worked for a college?
Well, I guess to put it into perspective, when I started my first job as a reporter, I had an extreme fear of making phone calls. If you can believe that, it took everything I had to pick up the phone and call a stranger. It gave me a great amount of anxiety. It was probably the hardest part of my job, not the writing, not the research, not the deadlines, but the actual calling somebody for an interview. And just bit by bit, I was able to kind of get into a rhythm where I focused on my strengths. And in doing so, it helped me kind of overcome my weaknesses. There was something about, because it's very common, believe it or not, amongst journalists and people that work within that field to have pretty sincere social anxiety. A lot of them are introverts rather than extroverts. But there's something about the job itself that helps you get out of that space by providing you with a genuine reason to be having those interactions. So there was a time where, it was still difficult for me to talk to strangers, but the purpose of talking to them was enough to push me through that anxiety. And I always like to say there's nothing I can't or won't do if I've got a camera in my hand or a voice recorder or a microphone. And it's literally been a ladder. I mean, change we often think of as something that is sweeping and broad and all consuming, but it really isn't. Change is a bunch of tiny steps that we take to build our confidence and our ability to have faith in ourselves and be able to overcome things that maybe once upon a time we didn't think were even possible. And that's definitely been the case with joining the team at Northern. When we do jobs and when we go to school for a certain stream of education, we often think that the skill set that we have is very directed into that particular area, but it's incredible how many skills you have that overlap, whether it's organization, being able to build and maintain relationships. Those I'll call them secondary skills, or ones that we don't pay as close attention to, in my experience, are often the ones that are the most transferable. And in the last 2.5 years that I've spent at Northern, I've been astonished by how many skills I learned as a journalist that have applied to less so communications, because I think the connection between those two is reasonably obvious, but more so the marketing side of my responsibilities. Knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to communicate to an audience has been an incredible piece of experience for me to be able to transfer into marketing. And as time goes on, I'm sure I'm going to find a lot of other areas that contribute to that skill set.
Great. And when you have in your role, there's a lot that happens at a college in a marketing area and communications area. It never stops. And even right now with COVID, it's even increased in some, internal capacities as well. What do you do for stress and when you're overwhelmed for students that have a lot of stressors on them or have uncertainty or are super busy trying to maybe have a couple of part-time jobs and make it all work? What do you do to help with that stress and stay in that positive mind frame to get things done and keep connecting with people?
I tend to look at projects as dominoes, whether it's a full project or a piece of a project. If you can achieve something little towards each goal every day, then you increase your level of productivity because you're not being overwhelmed by the broader picture. That was a skill set, not that I learned as a reporter, but actually I learned in high school as a short order cook in a restaurant. So, when a restaurant gets busy, there's a little receipt machine called a chip machine that prints off order after order after order, and then you pin them up on the chipboard, and they stack up and they line up, and every order is different. Some of them have special substitutes, and if you can't isolate one table or isolate a group of tables, and you only take in the whole board, which is really overwhelming, you'll shut down. You won't be able to function because the anxiety of the broader task is too much. But then you start to look at things as they group together, and you start to see that maybe a couple of tables have ordered meals that take the same amount of time to cook, or you see that all of the appetizers are the same. And as you start to break down the broader picture into something smaller and more manageable, you'll realize that although there are 15, 20 orders on the board, it's actually only maybe 10 steps. And the same is true as you work through managing multiple projects at the same time. Personally, I find the easiest way to deal with that stuff is depending on deadlines, set up my average, like my day as within themes. So there are certain days where I will write the whole day. And I find if I write too many days in a row, then I fall into a bit of a rut where I get, writer's block, or I have difficulty conveying points. But if I take one day to write, the next day to do maybe video editing or photography or project management, it breaks the week up and it keeps you motivated, and it allows you to make a lot more progress than you may have done if you just stubbornly stared at the same project day after day after day.
Awesome. And so you mentioned being a cook and how you took some of the learnings from there, and you talked about being a journalist and working, from CTV and broadcasting to the Timmins Daily Press and living in different parts of the country. At the time, did you see the end goal, or did you say, this is something that interests me that I can do? Because for those that are like, well, this isn't my dream job yet, do I take it and have something in hand? Would you say all those jobs that you had in different ways taught you things, even though you're not a chef right now or cooking? You used an example of what you learned in that job.
Life isn't a straight line. Life is like a river. And there are forks in the river, there are lakes, there are places where the water is fast and where the water is calm. And I think it's incredibly important to have, a broad vision of what you want from your life, where your value set is. For me personally, the only thing that motivates me in life is happiness, as defined by me, and that's defined differently by everybody. And work in a career can be incredibly fulfilling and incredibly fun, but it can ring hollow if you're not focused on what that effort brings to your life as an individual, as a person. So I've done a lot of different things in my life. And yeah, for sure, the question has crossed my mind is this heading in the right direction? But I like to take a fluid approach to sustainability and within a career, because in the 8-9 years that I worked as a reporter, not a year went by where I didn't narrowly miss being laid off. And that's an incredibly stressful situation for a person to be in. So and I do this often in my life, is take a step back and reevaluate my direction, where I want to go and who I want to be, because 10 years ago, the answer would be very different than it is today. But without those check-ins, without those rest stops, the calm water to really assess and realize that nothing in life is static, that we all grow and we all change, and we all, most importantly, need to learn and to teach ourselves. The future may not hold what you want it to. I mean, life is one big lesson. If we're not picking up on the cues along the way, then we might end up in a place where we find no satisfaction.
Okay. At one point you talked about social anxiety and making phone calls. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. We're so used to texting one another that if someone calls you without saying, can I call you? It's like, why is someone calling me? And we don't always pick up the phone. I'm wondering what advice you would have for folks that a certain part of their job just makes them anxious, like having to speak in public if you're serving, or I don't know, your boss calling you to talk to you about something and you're like, am I in trouble? Did you use positive self-talk, or what did you use as a strategy to say, just pick up the phone, you can do this? Did you talk to yourself, or did you just force yourself, or what did you do to prepare?
I tried a little bit of everything, if I'm honest. In the end, what worked for me, and may not work for everybody else, was forcing myself to do it, because the reality of what I was doing versus the monolith that I had built up in my head were kind of laughable. Like, what I feared, making a phone call, I still to this day have no idea. Having made thousands, millions of phone calls in my life for whatever reason, I think for me, it was identifying what it is about it that made me anxious. And now as I'm thinking about it, it had a lot to do with bothering people, because I'm not somebody who likes to be bothered. And to be a journalist is to essentially be a little bit bothersome, right? You're asking of the people around you something, right? And it's kind of hard to cold call somebody and ask for something. That's not really how we work as social creatures, right? But by identifying what it was that made me uncomfortable, I was able to reframe it into a situation where what made me passionate about being a reporter was actually like doing my best to help people. My favorite stories were always the ones where I could, do a story on a person in need or a situation that by bringing attention to it, I would be helping the people that are being affected by the story. That's not every day. I mean, being a journalist means doing, fun, light stories about the Cochrane Winter Carnival, but it also means covering murder trials. And it's all a balance, and you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And that's not exclusive to being a reporter. That's exclusive to being a working individual. And without a broader sense of purpose, without a broader goal in mind, it can be very taxing to kind of deal with those bad days.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing. It's great to hear your story.
Happy to. Thank you.
We're also welcoming Danielle Bona, who is a graphic designer here at Northern College. Welcome to the presentation, Danielle, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. My name is Danielle Bona. I've been with the college, actually, it was 2 years as of April 8th of last week. And boy, do 2 years go by quickly. We've been doing some amazing things, and I'm so proud to be a part of Northern. Our tagline, our motto was proud to be Northern. And boy, I am very proud. And also proud of the team, and working away from the office has been, for me, it's been challenging at the beginning, but I have integrated into those virtual meetings and, sharing creatives that way, which is completely what I'm not used to as a creative. I'm always there in a meeting, sketching and offering ideas, in front of people. So for me, the cues are a little bit different. Not really used to the body language on virtual versus actually being in front of somebody. So I have had to adapt to that. My background is design and art. As a little girl, I loved drawing and making up stories and presenting and playing and, getting dressed up and doing drama plays in front of my parents. I have a great aunt who was a graphic designer. So I do feel that I have a strong creative background moving forward. And I went to school at St. Lawrence College in Kingston, and I was actually down living in that area for quite some time in my career. And I love it. I love coming into work with the different things to do every day, which is awesome because I love new challenges every day. And speaking of challenges, I'm not sure if anyone's switched careers in middle at any point in time of their life, but at one time in my early 20s, there was not a lot of jobs in design in my area, and I was looking for work, and I was like, what am I going to do? There's no design work out there, and I need to find something, that I can, to do it, long term. And I said, you know what? I love people. I love connecting with people. I love caring for people. And my mother was a nurse. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I should look into healthcare. And it sparked me to wanting to move into a healthcare position or education. So I went into the PSW program. And I really, truly saw something in me that I never thought I had. And, going into it, it was challenging, both mentally and physically, but there are things that I tapped into that I never knew I had, these new skill sets that I bring forward even now as, keep going into the design avenue. But I'll never regret doing it. And if I need to fall back on a PSW position, I love it. I would volunteer to do that because I do care about people. And moving forward, I just think it's something that I will always appreciate and hold dear to me.
Thanks for sharing your story, and that sometimes we have to have a fallback and have another tool in our toolkit. So you definitely did that by taking the PSW, and we're seeing that those are needed more and more in the province. So I appreciate you having that openness to healthcare and seeing the great work that can be done there. And then also being in a creative field as well, and how that there are many different careers over the course of a lifetime, as we know, and more so in the future. So I like that you were able to pivot and be flexy on what you would do when you needed to in a pinch. Hope, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Wache, that means hello in my language. I am Hope Kozies, just in case if some of you had missed that. You can pronounce Kozies as like cool and then like a C, just say cool C's. But I am the Indigenous Recruiter and Pathways Navigator. I am almost at the end of my probation, so I'm getting there. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, Lynn and Susan, for inviting me to this amazing presentation. I am always about empowerment. So yeah, so I come from a small community called the Attawapiskat First Nation. Some of you probably not familiar with it, but it is located along the James Bay coast. The only way you can get in and out of the community is through an airplane, or in the winter you can take the winter road. But anyways, I graduated from high school. I originally was pursuing a nursing career. So during those 4 years, I've taken a lot of science courses, mathematic courses, and everything related to nursing. So I applied to Northern College. Originally, I accepted into the Bachelor's of Nursing program. However, a week in, I realized how unhappy I was. I knew I still wanted to help people, but I just felt unhappy, and I knew that there were other ways to help others. So anyways, long story short, I was introduced to the Police Foundations program. It's a 2-year program at Northern College. I completed the program successfully, thank goodness. During the duration of my program, I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned that I have very strong organization skills, as I like to say, a control freak. I like to be nosy, so I don't know, it's just me. But anyways, I've developed so many skills within that program, how to de-escalate a situation. As previously, Mac Pettigrew was the program coordinator, as he likes to say, verbal jiu-jitsu. So anyways, I completed that. However, I went in to go do my ATS testing. I paid the fee. I felt like I was ready. And then this thing came up. I didn't pass the academic portion of the testing. It was a huge bummer because I was like, well, there goes my plans. I gotta wait another 3 months or next year to get into police college, because I was pursuing wanting to pursue a career with Anishinaabe-Aski Nation. The reason for that was because I wanted to go back to my community and just show other Indigenous youth like me at the time that you're capable and that there's more, life has so much more to offer than just staying in your community. So anyways, I took a month. I was unemployed for a good month, living out of my parents' basement. Probably in a bit of student debt as well. But anyways, I realized I needed to gain more of the experiences, and I came across this quote during this time of my life. It's all from a Facebook group called Reclaim Your Power, which is an Indigenous focus group. The quote is from Joy Harjo, I don't know, but anyways, the quote said that at least I've had to come to that in my life to realize that this stuff called failure, this debris of historical trauma, family trauma, and stuff that can kill your spirit is actually raw material you can make things with and to build a bridge. You can use those materials to build a bridge over that which would kill you. So, especially as an Indigenous woman, I've faced a lot of trauma, ranging from neglect and other things. So I realized I needed to do a lot of internal work, which involved empowerment and a lot of trauma-informed approach. So I went into social work because I knew that the experiences I've obtained, whether if it's professional or personal, would help with the kids that I worked with. So I was a transitional age youth worker for a couple years with an agency in Timmins. I basically worked with high-risk youth, and the stories you hear are very heartbreaking. However, my favorite part is when I see them smile, I see them praise themselves when they reach a huge achievement, whether if it's just finishing a math assignment that they're struggling with, or even graduating. So I had the opportunity to see my kids, I called them my kids, to achieve those goals. And then I transitioned after I realized I was done with social work. I wanted a change in my life, change careers, because I'm very passionate about education. And I am also a fangirl of Marie St. Clair. So the one quote I always talk about is that education got us into this, education could also get us out. So I worked with the district school board for a bit, And then this opportunity came up. So I get to do the exact same thing that I used to do when I was a transitional age youth worker and a Indigenous advisor. So it's always such an amazing opportunity for me to connect with students and find out what type of supportive services they need to ensure they're successful while I'm recruiting. So just like I mentioned earlier, be brave enough to suck at something new. I personally, I struggled a little bit in this position for a good month or two. And then I learned just to ask for help, because I'm the type of person to not ask for help and just figure it out. And I realized that we have a team that is very supportive and will help us, whether it's professionally or personally. So yeah, so that's where I'm at right now in my journey in regards of career. I do want to pursue a career in policing someday, not now, but when the time is right. I'll be Constable Hope Kozies one day.
Love it. You go, girl.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing your story, and thanks for being vulnerable, Danielle, as well. That authenticity and that truth telling is really powerful, because there's strength in telling our stories and being honest about them, and sharing the shadow sides as well as the bright light sides, and embracing that holistic view. And that we teach, even in positivity, we teach that reframing our past, telling the story the way that we get to tell it, is a really powerful move in itself. So we're so pleased to have you here, Hope. And we thank you as well, Danielle, for sharing your story.
Can I add something on?
You may, of course. We'd love you to.
I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I just thought of this. So back in 2015, when my grandmother passed away, like, I'm okay with talking about it now, because you deal with it, you go through the necessary steps. But anyways, in regards to positivity, that day, she said, obviously in her language, I'm going to translate it in English, is that she told us to greet each day as the sun rises. And like, since that day, I've made sure to have a positive attitude and to embrace the new challenges, embrace the new changes, and embrace everything that life has to offer.
Isn't that beautiful that she had that legacy builder that stuck in your mind, that you can remember to be grateful and greet each day with that gratefulness that we're on the planet still?
Exactly. So ever since then, I say that to myself every morning.
Love that.
So good. And you mentioned trauma earlier, and we have intergenerational trauma with Indigenous communities and individuals, as you've talked about, Hope, the reference to education and the role that has played in it, and reclaiming your power. And part of it, as personally and in communities and as a nation, is acknowledging trauma. And without that acknowledgement, we can't work through it. We can't deal with it as we're meant to as a nation. And this is definitely one area where folks say, well, what about positivity? What about getting over it? You might hear that sometimes. And it's not about that. It's about acknowledging it. So that's the truth part. And you have to have the truth part for reconciliation to happen. So that happens on a personal scale and on a national scale and on a systemic scale. Is you can't just brush that injustice, you can't just sanitize the history books. And so we do try to pull that into everything that we teach at Northern College, and be that piece of the community that says, let's tell the whole story and the whole truth and the vulnerability of that and the strength of that and the healing quality of that. And it's not going to happen in a day. But each of us in our own ways have experienced trauma, and it doesn't negate the other person's trauma. And we also have to hold that space for each other. So I'm glad that you've brought that up. And And it is that acknowledgement of it and working through it together, both personally and collectively. So well done.
Talk with Sumit now for a little while, get deep dive into his positivity.
Thank you. Promise you I'm going to make it fun because funny things happen in my life. So I'll talk about positivity, how it helped me, and that there are some funny incidents that happened with me, which were bad, but I made it positive. So let me tell you, I have to give you a little bit of insight of what happened and why positivity was so important for me, because I was 6 years old. My father got into cancer. He was a full-time employee in the Indian Railways. He was a big manager there, lost a job, and his pension a month was pretty much $90 a month. So we were barely making it every month, right? I was 6 years old, couldn't do a job, but at the age of 9 years, I started a job that used to pay me $3 a month. I was the richest kid in the block. And I started working from there and then worked my way up. So I don't want to go into that negative part of the life so much, but just letting you know that pretty much there was nothing. I think I was at the age of 14 where I realized that I won't be able to do anything in my life because I have nothing. All I have to do is just make sure that there's food on the table at the end of the day, at night, right? And I started getting negative, and I became so negative at that time that it was just unbelievable. I was angry, I was frustrated, I was tired. I woke up tired at the age of 14. Imagine that kind of life at the age of 14. And you know that, oh, life is not going to be that great if this is how it's going to be at the age of 14. And we don't have no guidance counselors. We just have high schools teachers teach, and then you go and teachers are up there, so you can't even talk to them that much. But I remember my physical training teacher, he was one of the best I ever got in my life. And he introduced me to positivity. And he said, you have to be positive in your life. And I'm the most logical guy, right? I am from India, so we are all about numbers. We are all about accounting. We are all about taxes. We are all about that. We don't believe in the things that we can't see. So I was thinking, what are you talking about? Are you telling me just to think positive, even though there's nothing positive in my life? And he told me to read a book. It was called As a Man Thinketh. And this is one of those books that told me how to think, right? And I started thinking about it. I started reading and I liked it. And then there's a list of books that I said, Believe in Yourself, As a Man Thinketh, 5 Rules of Thought, The Strangest Secret, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, The Secret to Success, Philosophy of Successful Living, everything. I've read so much. I mean, my Kobo, if you can see, yeah, now you can see, my Kobo has more than 3,000 books, and I would say maybe 2,000 is all about positivity. So I can say I'm the most domesticated immigrant from India you can see right now on this presentation, because I'm all about that. I'm all about reading positive, having a scented candle, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, putting the legs up, and I'm just all about that. But it all came up to the point back going to my PT teacher telling me, think about positivity. And it didn't, I couldn't believe at that time, because I thought it was just hooky pooky. Why I'm thinking about positivity? But once you start thinking about it, once you start believing it, it starts manifesting itself. So I remember I finished my high school. I had no money to study more. So I had to take care of the family. So I worked for maybe 6 more years and then got my college and then did everything. But when I thought about coming to Canada, I actually wanted to go to Australia. I know, right? I wanted to go to Australia, but then I thought, you know what, Canada it is. But I came to Canada, and all this thing happened just because I believed myself. I said, you know what, I deserve it. I mean, yes, I had bad life. Yes, I had tough childhood. Yes, I had to always work. And you know what, I still tell Susan about it. And I said, hey, Susan, I'm ready to retire. And she laughs at me, but she doesn't believe me. But I'm actually 30 years old. So I'm pretty much working since 9 years old. So I'm working since 21. I mean, it's 21 years. I can retire by law, but that's how it is. So I always thought about positivity, and I always thought about finding good in whatever bad happens. And there is a saying in India, and I think you should listen to it. I'm going to repeat it twice because it's going to impact your life really good. There's a saying in India, it says, everything is good at the end of the day, right? Everything is good when it's end. And if things are not good, it's not the end. Let me repeat that one more time. Everything is good at the end. If it's not good, it's not the end. So that means if things are not going correctly right now, it is not the end. Maybe you have to learn something. Maybe you have to do something more. Maybe you have to do something getting out of it. Maybe there's a knowledge that has been missing out that you need to learn. And at the end, it's going to be good. And that's how it is. So I would say this is the end for me, where I'm here, I'm doing this. This is all me thinking about it. I remembered my school was 8 kilometers away, and I used to bicycle every day to school, come back, go to work, come back again. So it was just crazy. So I used to be always tired, but I used to imagine that I'm riding my bicycle, but however, I'm driving a BMW. And I used to imagine that. And I used to do that. Now I got one, totaled it, got another one, and I'm using this. Maybe I'm going to get another one. But it all happened because I believed in it. I'm a kid from India who made, in 1999, I made $4 a month. 2005, $10 a month. Just a decade ago, so 2010, I was making $80 a month, right? And right now I'm in a pay band H with the college, which is significant, right? But it all happened because I said, I believed in myself. I said, I deserve it. I am capable of doing that. And you have to do the work. It's not just that you saying I'm capable for it and just sitting in your couch and not doing anything about it. You have to do the work. But if you back that up with your positive feelings, your positive thoughts, it works. I'm here. And I don't think me being here, it's, again, I said it before, it's a long shot. I don't think it would have even been happened. And I remember my immigration application was done at the last minute. So my permit was expiring at 12 a.m. today. I submitted my file at 11:15 because I was waiting on my salary. So once it gets deposited, I have enough money to pay for my application, right? So I'm that guy who had no money, who had no prospects, who had nothing, and I'm here. And the biggest driving factor was positivity. So I always think about that. And I always have a vision of myself saying, maybe within 5 years, I'll be that. And you work towards it. You have the positive feelings, and that will take over you. And you will become a good team player. You'll become a good presenter. You'll become whatever you're doing, the best version of yourself in that. Initially, it might think that everything is not good around me, but I'm having this positivity. It's crazy. But after a little bit, it will take over you, and it will make your life even better. So I would say maybe start reading one of those books, As a Man Thinketh. I would suggest that book any given day. It talks about how to think. And then there's another book that talks about 5 rules of thought. And it talks about what are the most important, because what we do every day, we are a vibration being. And I know it's going more towards law of attraction, but I just want to say it because it kind of relates a little bit. Thinking is very important. So make sure your thoughts are always good. Be nice to yourself, and you deserve it. I mean, I feel every one of us are pretty much $2 billion asset that is here, and we can do so much with ourselves, but we just get bogged down by things, you know. As my dad used to always, he used to smack my head every time and tell me, life is simple. Keep it simple. Don't complicate it. We do that sometimes. We complicate it. Keep it simple. You deserve it. You can do it. You're willing to work for it. Who's going to stop you? And I think Crystal said it before, where she said unrealistic goals, right? But who dictates that? I don't know. Maybe a guy who's making $4 a month saying that I'm going to go to Canada and do a presentation with the director of the college, Susan Hunter, and Lynn Cotgrave, Canadian people. You know, this is a proud moment for myself, right? And it all happened because I believed in it and I had this positive thinking. So maybe if I can do it, why not you? And nothing is unrealistic. Everything is realistic until we put a limit to it. So if I say I want to end up, I don't know, let's say Bollywood backup dancer, the initial career that I wanted to do, I could be that too if I want to. And that's the magic of it. You have to believe in it, and you deserve it. Absolutely. There's no way why you not deserve it. And then just go towards it, and it happens. And back it up with positivity. If things go bad, that's okay. It's there for a reason. There's something that you might have to still learn. There's something that you might have to understand, but it will come to you. It might take a little bit more, but don't stop believing. keep on doing it. And always remember, you deserve whatever you think, because the pure thought of you thinking about is, so let's say if I'm thinking about, I want to be a recruiter, the thought that came to my mind is in itself a confirmation that I can do it, right? Because why don't I believe that I want to be the most successful NBA player? Because it will never come to me, because I'm not that person. So your soul always talks to you, and it will tell you what you can do and what you cannot do. But the problem is it only whispers, it never yells at you. So just hear that, pick it up, believe in it. You definitely deserve it because it came to you. Work towards it, follow it with positivity. Boom. Now you're driving a Mercedes, I hope. Thank you.
Thanks, Sumit. What we heard from Sumit was how you frame it, be nice to yourself, listen to your soul, it'll tell you what to do. And the other things we heard about is sometimes for yourself, for you, you don't have the same dreams as someone else. And that's not only okay, because Sumit wanted to be a Bollywood dancer, which is totally okay. And his day job is being a recruiter and loving his life here and presenting, on behalf of our college a lot of the time. So it's a really powerful place that you're coming from, Sumit. And I also wanted to mention that this isn't the end. So for those of you, many of you who are graduating who are here today, you can continue to get certifications with Northern College. We can continue to help you through employment options, emploi, about your placement in working for another employer. Also that lifelong learning and certifications that you might need, you can think of Northern College. So I wanted to mention that as well, that learning never ends, and today's presentation is one part of that.
Wanted to just finish us off with a few skills that you can use at work that are helpful for searching a job while you're at work or during career changes. So having positive communication with others, coworkers, yourself, even being open, honest, and direct, and respecting others, as well as using a tone of voice and body language that's collaborative and supportive of others that you're working with. Another one is for stress management, always remembering to take breaks, having balanced work and personal life, and also understanding what your limits are, and if there are projects on your desk or tasks that you have to complete at work or at home that are stressful, you can take a moment to recharge and move to something less stressful for a while, and just keeping in tune with where you're at stress-wise. Another big one is having resilience, and that comes with welcoming change and remembering to give yourself time to adapt to new experiences and opportunities, being flexible and willing to compromise when there are changes. So just persevering through that, that's a really good positive skill to have during tough times. And then finally, just setting career goals, just writing them down, like just thinking about what you want in life, whether it's in your career or just life in general. Kind of thinking about those things in a positive light just really helps with your own advancement and growth. And I hope this kind of just speaks to the idea of a lot of you on the call are likely new grads or graduating soon, and just understanding that career paths are super diverse. If you're not happy with your career path, go back to school and do something different, but always just embracing change and uncertainty and be positive about what you could do. Anything else you wanted to add on to that, Susan?
Yeah, I just love the fact that you're going into that uncertainty, because how brave of you to all step out to, first of all, get a post-secondary education. And the power of words that we heard about earlier when Sumit was speaking. Take your dream, and if you have one, just get quiet. If you don't have one, you can get quiet and think of it too. Think of what it feels like walking into that place, how the people treat you. Imagine being in a workplace that's supportive and fun, where you laugh and grow. And yes, there's serious stuff, but how good you feel and how they treat you and what you see around you that's important. And put that up on a piece of paper with words that say, I am a nurse working at the hospital. And you put that up and you keep it up that you can see it either in your bathroom mirror or on a wall or in your kitchen beside your coffee maker, and say you are that. And when you're scared, what I tend to do is I put, now this is getting exciting, or this is getting interesting, even if you're scared, because then your body can't tell between fear and excitement or something being interesting. So it looks at it more like an adventure than being petrified and chewing your fingernails and going, ooh, this is bad. If I don't get a job, my parents will wonder if I took the right thing. That little thing, you just make that go away and you put your dream out there and a big smile on your face and just sit in that and pause for success instead of worrying about the future, because you're already doing so many things that are attracting goodness and prosperity to your life. We are cheering each of you on, and we want to thank you for joining us. You are all awesome, and you're deserving of such good things. And when you do those good things, reach back to us. We'd love to tell your story and put it into an ad so other people see that they can do it too. I believe in you. We believe in you. You're all amazing. And congratulations on your upcoming graduation. And yeah, go get that job.